The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win Make Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast. Chad Himes here again with my amazing athletic teammate, Jillene. Hey, Jillene, how are you today?
Hey, Chad. I love that introduction. Thank you.
Well, we got to have something different each and every time. Now, I referred to you as my teammate. That's not only on the 15-Point Plan podcast, is it?
Mm-mm. No,
we got something coming up, and we are really excited about what we have coming up. And we're so excited about it, actually, that we went and found the man behind what we've got coming up. So, Jillene, what is it that we are about to get into that sadly not everybody even understands what it is yet?
Yeah, exactly. I've actually been telling people about this, and it's the first time they're hearing what it is and what it means. And it's been exciting to be able to share this with them. Now, this is my third time doing it, and everyone's probably on the edge of their seat right now saying, like, what is it? But
Well, she's had 2 kids, so folks, maybe, okay, no, it's not that.
no, it's not that. No, thank you. It is a race. It's a relay race called Ragnar. And this is my third time doing it. Chad has roped me into the third time, and he's very convincing, by the way, very convincing. And so I ran a few laps just before this podcast just to get ready, because I felt like if we're interviewing this individual, it'd be good to run a couple laps and warm up, right? So this is a 200-mile relay race, and I should really leave this to Tanner to be able to explain to us. But it's a relay race that is between a team of people. So I get to do this with Chad. And how many others, Chad?
Well, there's going to be 12 of us. So my wife's coming. There's a whole bunch of us coming along. And you're right. Let's let Tanner tell us all about what Ragnar is and where that crazy name came from and a whole bunch of other things. And we'd love to bring to the call right now the man behind Ragnar Race, one of the men, I should say, behind the Ragnar Race, Mr. Tanner Bell. Tanner, welcome to the 15-Point Plan.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. We're excited to spread the message of Ragnar to everybody. Jillene and I are both really into athletics, and we know that the people who are listening to the 15-Point Plan, they're looking to improve their energy, their health, their happiness, and boy, training for any sort of event is going to help make that happen. And Ragnar is a specific type of event for some people that maybe might be a little scared. They get a group opportunity to come along in this. So folks, we might go a little longer than our normal 15 minutes because, heck, it's going to be worth it while we have Tanner here with us today. So, Tanner, we've given you a little bit of an introduction. We've mentioned what this race is, but I like to have our guests introduce themselves so you really tell us what matters to you about who you are. So, introduce yourself to the 15-Point Plan audience.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ragnar, and Ragnar is the world's largest series of overnight road running and trail running relay races. So we have 2 series. And by the way, the one you're talking about, the Ragnar Northwest Passage in Washington State, is hands down one of my favorite courses. But I'll get to that into that in a minute. So our road races are these kind of overnight wandering adventures. So it's 12 people on a team. Each person on the team runs 3 legs, and each leg is about roughly 5 to 7 miles, right? So you run one leg during the day on a Friday, then your other teammates run, then you run your next leg at night, generally kind of during the night, doesn't stop, so you go straight through the night. So either on Friday night or Saturday early morning. And then you do your last leg Saturday during the day. And then once everybody in your team has run all 3 legs, then you finish together as a team at the finish line. So that's how
Awesome.
the road race works. And then
Okay.
the trail race is an 8-person, similar concept, except instead of going from point to point, this is actually a village. So you've got 8 people that camp out in a village and take turns running 3 loops. So there are 3 loops that start and end, kind of a clover leaf, start and end in a central village. And then each runner takes turns running all 3 loops. And similarly, each runner on your team has run all 3 loops. Then you finish together as a team.
Awesome. All right. So it's not just running. It's not just a relay race. It is a team and it is an experience getting to run day, night, all these wonderful things. But Tanner, Ragnar.
Yeah.
What kind of name is that? Why? Give me some. I mean, there's got to be a reason we call it Ragnar.
That is a wonderful question. So it actually goes a long way back to when we were one of my co-founders grew up with a rough, tough, burly guy named Ragnar. And he was just friends with, as kids, he was friends with a guy named Ragnar, and this dude was just the roughest guy, toughest guy he knew. So he started calling rough, tough, gnarly people Ragnars. And then when we started our first race in Utah, we were, knucklehead college kids, and we found the two hardest legs on the course, and we're like, let's name one of them You Got to Be Kidding Me, because that's the reaction you get when you see it at the bottom. This is a leg that goes from Midway, Utah, over Guardsman's Pass Mountains, and then ends in Park City, Utah. And so it was You Got to Be Kidding Me. And then the two legs, the second leg was the Ragnar leg. And that was the hardest leg of the course. I can't remember now, but it was something like, I don't know. It was an insane amount of feet in like 3.5 miles, right? And so that's where the name came from. And initially it was just a name of the hardest leg on the course. And then we were fortunate enough to have some early on mentors and investors that loved the concept, and they helped us launch it nationally. But they said the first thing you got to do is build a brand. They can't just be called kind of these different names, not connected. So we went to a marketing agency, and they said, hey, we love that name Ragnar. You guys should call it Ragnar. And we were like, in our infinite wisdom, we were like, no way. Like, that's crazy. It's an accessible race. We don't want people to be scared away. And after 6 months of like debate and discussion and actually choosing a whole different name, we ended up back at Ragnar, and then found out from a marketing firm that Ragnar was this 9th century Norse king. He was this conqueror, this wanderer, this wild man. And it just fit the spirit of the race, right? It is this team adventure, but it's an opportunity for you to do something unique that you've really never done before, right? Like sitting in a van or hanging out in a tent for 24 hours, supporting your teammates as they're running, in the sun or the wind or the rain, or heaven forbid, it has happened, the snow, and so it's just this kind of rough, tough, burly overnight adventure.
And to be fair, Ragnar, the race came out, 18 years ago? Is that correct?
Yeah. I think it's 14, maybe 15 now. Yeah, but close enough. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's before the show The Vikings came out, because The Vikings is pretty famous for Ragnar Roth. How do you say that? Dave, help me.
Yeah. Yep.
Lothbrok. Yep. And he was a rough guy and very, very much about his people. And so when I saw that show, I actually thought about the race because of how you're saying this is a team event. This is team coming together for an adventure, finishing as a team, supporting your team. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that's one of the reasons Ragnar has been successful over the years, is because it takes what is typically a solitary sport and an individual endeavor like running, and it makes it a team sport. And so instead of, typically running, you're worried about your personal best or your PR. You're worried about your nutrition. You're just worried about getting over the finish line. And what happens in Ragnar is you shift your perspective to worrying about your teammates. And I actually think that makes your run better. That makes your performance better. I don't know if you guys remember, was it 3 years ago, that Des Linden was like in the Boston Marathon. She was like, oh, I'm going to help my teammate because I'm just not having my race. And then she ended up winning it, right? And it was because she was worried about somebody else and not so much worried about herself. And then she ended up winning the race. And Ragnar has that effect. It just has this like rising tide lifts all athletes, right? Sort of impact. So,
well, maybe if they were triathletes and they had to swim, there you go. Might rise. Okay, so Tanner, look, I love this stuff. Yet to our audience listening, I got to imagine most of them are saying, Hell no. Right? I mean, those are the words that would come naturally out of almost everybody's mouth when you say, hey, do you want to do this 24-hour relay race with me that just runs like, why would somebody want to participate in a Ragnar event?
Yeah. That's a great question. I'll do you one further. 6 people in a van, stinky van, hanging out. What it is, well, this is what happens. There's sort of this process where you do get, some people get roped in by their captains. A small amount of people are like, this is a great idea, right? And then the rest of the people just get roped in by their very convincing captains to come do this cool event. And they run their first leg and they're like, there's some apprehension. They're like, I don't really know how this is going to work. I only know half of the people in my van. And then you run your first leg and then your inhibitions are kind of dropped and you realize that this is really more about the road trip. And the running is this awesome byproduct, right? And then you get to middle of the night and it's like, pitch black. You're running in the middle of the nowhere with a headlamp or a reflective vest. And you're like questioning your life decisions, including Ragnar. You're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. What am I thinking, right? And then the sun comes up and you're like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. Like I made it through that dark sort of journey. I went through the hardest leg on the course. Typically that night leg is both magical, but also very challenging. And then you're like, cool, I have one leg left. I've made best friends with my van mates. Some of them I didn't even know before, and I'm going to keep in touch with them forever. And you do your last leg, and then you have this surreal experience of finishing together. So, I mean, part of it is like the appeal of this road trip with friends, doing something unique really doing something together that you never maybe could have done on your own, or few people would do on their own. But a big part of it is just you got to do it, you got to experience it, and then you'll get it and you'll come back. And that's really a big part of the growth of Ragnar over the years has been, people that get roped in by their team captain, and then the next year they're like, I got to start my own team. And so it's like this spawn of teams upon teams upon teams.
How did you get started? I mean, you're telling me how I should get everyone else started. And, heck, Jillene's done 2 already. I've never done one yet. I'm the guy I'm the OCR runner. I'm the guy. So I was like, I've always wanted to do a Ragnar, and you got one in my backyard. So let me wrangle a bunch of people. We got friends coming from across the country to run with us. How did you get into it before it was, even called Ragnar?
Yeah, that's a great. So I actually wasn't a runner when I started it. So it was my buddy and I in college. My friend and I, we had just been kind of serial entrepreneurs. And when I say serial entrepreneurs, very unsuccessful high school entrepreneurs, I should say. Lost some of our dad's money putting together a volleyball business in high school, and great education. Learned the ropes a little bit. And my buddy, my co-founder, was a runner, and the other co-founder, his father, had run a race in Oregon called the Hood to Coast. And we give props to the Hood to Coast. It's an incredible race. It's been going for years and years. And so the father had run Hood to Coast and had just dreamed about it for years, or dreamed about doing one in Utah, but never really got around to it. And so his son and I in college, we were like, you know what, let's put on this race. And for me, I wasn't a runner. I'd been athletic. I'd done a lot of team sports and individual sports, but running wasn't like my jam. And so for me, it was like, man, I like throwing parties. And this would like get me to run because it's like a running party, right? And so I'm like, this would get me to run, and I really like the concept of making it like this roving road trip party. And so that's how I got into it. And then honestly, we were young. I mean, we were 24-ish. And then, as entrepreneurs, we just I let it take over my life. And so I didn't run an event for the first probably 4 or 5 years. Because we were, 2 kids trying to put on, national events around the world or around the nation. And so I kind of let it take over my life, gained some weight. And then about 5 years. So 5 years after that, I was like, this is crazy. Like I actually loved being athletic before. This is an incredible experience. Finally, we were able to hire a few employees and not put the races on ourselves. And I was able to run an event, and then I've been running them ever since. And I've really become an endurance athlete in general. So running, cycling. I mean, I'm not so much into the swimming, but I'll do it if I have to. If my wife makes me, I'll swim.
That's a pretty incredible success story, starting a business that, you had never been a runner. And yet you found that it became a passion of yours over time, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And we sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, and you might be sharing this right now, what are some other favorite success stories that you have of either yourself or others going through maybe the same process?
Yeah, it's a great question. Oh man, I guess what I'll say is Ragnar has afforded me so many relationships, so many meaningful relationships around the nation. So we have this group of ambassadors that, brand ambassadors, just people that have been really connected with Ragnar over the years. Some of them have, tattoos and the whole deal. And to see like that transformation, just like my transformation. So one of our ambassadors was just having I think about her because she was just struggling in life. She was in a career that wasn't inspiring a ton of passion, and she just wasn't really living life to the fullest. And I can't remember how she discovered Ragnar, but I mean, she runs multiple every year and came out to run one in England. I was living in England a few years ago, launching our international events, and she came out to England and wrote my wife and I this letter because my wife has been, the power and support behind it, really, and and it was just so inspiring to hear not just the physical changes, but like the mental changes and really the friendships that she had made through Ragnar, once again, all throughout the nation, kind of like, our OCR community. I think there's so many of those relationships in all these communities, right? The marathon community, the OCR community. And so that's really what I've loved to see. That's one of my favorite success stories. We also had Ernie, who was, I think when he started, he was 85, and the dude was, I think he ran 5 Ragnars and was just an incredible inspiration to everybody. Yeah, he was like our unofficial mascot for 5 years there. Pretty cool.
85. I think that'll be Chad. And
yes,
yeah.
I will still be doing them. And for those of you listening who are going, OCR, what's that? Okay, that's obstacle course racing. So that's those Spartans, Savage Race, Tough Mudder. That's those ones where you get muddy and you climb over things. A very different yet similar concept in the sense of what Ragnar is. That's a road race, yet you still have that team and that camaraderie as you're going through all of that. So you've dropped in there a few locations.
Yeah.
So at first, obviously, you started in Utah.
Yep.
And now I've heard you mention, I mean, obviously you're up here where we are, the Northwest Passage running through Washington State, which is going to be gorgeous. And I don't know that we're going to be running in the dark because at that time of year, it's like the sun seems to never go down. Yet, are you guys everywhere now?
I mean, we're not everywhere, but we're doing our best. I mean, for the last year, we haven't been anywhere, but
Sure.
We are definitely coming out of that. We put on an event in Atlanta last week, and then we've got an event near Zion National Park, a trail event near Zion National Park next on May 14th and 15th. So we are this year about 31 races around the nation, and then we've got a handful of international races. So we've got everything from Washington to Florida, Southern California to New Hampshire, and Mexico to England and Germany. So we're all over.
Yeah. Tanner, where's the dream race? Where's the race that you don't have yet that you're saying, I want to put a race here, so I won't have an excuse to go, and 2, it's just gorgeous, so I want to be there for that run?
I think the big one for me that we haven't done, I would love to do Australia, New Zealand would be pretty amazing for me.
Oh,
I think,
yes. That would
yeah,
be incredible.
we did have a trail event there before COVID, and it was a small event, and then we're hoping to get back there. But I would love to see a long distance road race, 200 miles, 12 people. That would be a pretty fantastic course in the outback. So,
All right. So, listeners that are in Australia,
yeah.
we need you to reach out to us and then connect with Tanner. We can help you make that happen so you can help bring Ragnar to you the same way that we get it here in the United States. And folks, what I want you to hear in that is, as Tanner just said, he crisscrossed the country there with 31 events. And well, there's only 48 states in the landlocked here. Folks, that means if it's not in your state, it's probably in the state next door.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to go all the way across the country to participate in this or have to go to Utah. There's probably some sort of race in your general area if you want to get into it. So let's talk about that. If you were going to get into this, Tanner,
Yeah.
how would you recommend someone train for an event like this? I mean, they're about to run, as you said, somewhere between 8 and 25 miles, depending what legs they end up running. And they're going to run in the middle of the night. And some of them have never even done a 5K, or they've done the 5K fun runs. How do you train for Ragnar?
Yeah. So I think that the training, the first thing I'll say is that, it's 3 legs. And, depending on the team you get on, you can generally select, you can work with your team to select the legs that fit you. So we try to separate them out so that there's a grouping of shorter legs and then a grouping of longer legs. And so that's the other great thing about Ragnar is
Yeah, I don't appreciate that, just so you know, because as the captain, I had to take the longer legs and the hardest one just to get everyone to play along.
That's right.
But thanks for having that breakdown.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So, I mean, it is great though, because you have different abilities. You have very broad abilities. So if you're invited by, a hardcore runner, don't think that you necessarily have to be a hardcore runner. I think that anybody can do Ragnar with a little bit of training. I've done it with no training. And it's doable. It's just really sore afterwards. So I recommend some good training. Generally, and we have some training plans on the website, but generally what I recommend is start with 2 to 3 days a week and time yourself and base your training on minutes rather than mileage, right? And I think that if you build up from there, starting with minutes and going 3 days a week, then you can start to build up your confidence. You can start to build up your the time that you're running, and then after a month or two, if you really feel like you're getting where you're comfortable, then you can start to look at, okay, let's start checking off the miles. And as things get a little bit closer, what we generally recommend is starting to do kind of multiple runs during a day, because you're going to ultimately run 3 legs over 24 hours. So we'll recommend running, in the morning and the afternoon, to just kind of get a feel for what that's like. But the nice thing about it is that you do get those breaks in between. So you're running, even if you have a long leg, like a, 8 or 9 mile leg, then you get a break while the rest of your teammates run. And then you may have a 3 or 4 mile leg, which is good and bad. It's good that you have a break. It's bad that your, muscles tighten up. So you gotta, I guess that's the other thing. Stretch a lot before and during Ragnar. Lots of just staying really limber, and stretching a lot is good, because you will lactic acid. There's a unique challenge there. So.
And I imagine too, on the in-between, that's where a lot of the bonding happens and the relationship building and getting to know each other. So those moments are really special, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about how the magic really happens in the van. So what we focus on a lot of is like, how do we just induce opportunities for people to connect, right, with their teams. So a lot of what we do is think about at those exchange points in between the legs, what are the activities that we can provide people with? What are the opportunities to get people to, or help people get to know each other in their vans, maybe even get to know other teams. But yeah, the magic is that like middle of the night, you've got to run at 2 a.m. and somebody wakes you up and says, "Hey, it's your turn," and they get you all pumped up and get you out there to go. And then remembering that the next day and being like, "Man, thanks for waking me up so I didn't miss my leg," right? Those are the kind of
Yeah.
magic moments. Or even more, it's the euphoria of like, sleep deprivation at 2 a.m. and the real bonding experience. It's sort of like summer camp for adults is what it is.
Well, Tanner, let me ask you this. There's a lot of benefits of running Ragnar. And we talk about running, we talk about the race, we talk about the legs that we're going to do, right? And it's running. It's athletically challenging for some people. So what if someone was not a runner? What if they did not run or plan to run? What are some ways that they could participate in Ragnar just the same and maybe experience some of these relationship benefits?
Ooh, Ragnar is great for that. Maybe more than other types of events. So there's a couple of opportunities. One is some teams prefer to have a driver because if you have a large enough van and you can have a vehicle and you can have 7 people in your vehicle, it's nice to have a driver that just manages the directions and the food and the where we're gonna go and where we're gonna sleep. Having that kind of support crew is pretty great and actually a lot of fun. I was the van driver for a Cliff Bar athlete team a few years ago, and it's one of the best experiences of ever. It was like Alex Honnold and Scott Jurek and just all these amazing sort of Cliff Bar sponsored athletes, and I was the Sherpa getting them from point A to point B. Um, and then there's tons of volunteer opportunities, really inspiring volunteer opportunities. I mean, we need volunteers at every exchange point. So if you want to volunteer in the middle of a cornfield in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m. and wear, a tutu and, light up sunglasses and orange cowboy hat, you're not required to, but if you want to, you can hang out in the middle of a cornfield and do that and have a lot of fun seeing these people pushing themselves in the middle of the night. And the volunteers are sort of the glue that holds it all together. They do just an incredible job of keeping people's spirits up. So those are the two biggest ways. And then, of course, as we come out of the pandemic and are inviting spectators back to the finish line, just coming out and being inspired by what these people accomplished over 24 hours is a great way to get involved.
Those are some good options. And I love that you said you offer this where maybe some races don't. And I can say from being a runner in Ragnar, how much I appreciate those people being there as support because we need it. And frankly, I wouldn't go out and run that many miles on my own.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because I have this team behind me and the view is going to be pretty great too. So
you're doing it because I'm going to have my head out the passenger side of the van yelling, "Run!"
Yeah, that's right.
Right. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to make you chase the van to keep a pace. So listeners out there, if you are a listener of the 15-point plan and you want to help Jillene and I and the rest of our team, which includes my amazing wife, she's going to, of course, be the anchor of the team. Let us know. Reach out to us. We need volunteers. Now, we've already got 2 drivers. We're set. But we need some volunteers along the way that are willing to wear the tutus in the cornfields at the middle of the night to keep us going, cheer us on, and help us along. We would love to hear it. All right. So, Tanner, it's been around for, you said, 14, 15, 16 years without us all doing math and all that stuff. You do many events in a year. I gave you a hard time at the beginning of the call before we started, actually, because I can see your wall behind you. And I said, come on, where are all the Ragnar? How many have you run?
I should go to my box. You can't see my box, and I'll pull out my bling. Here's what I'll say. I should have started keeping track back in the day because I don't actually know. I would say over 15, less than 30 is probably what it is. So
all right,
I have a few
so more than one a year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
not all of them.
The first 5 years I didn't run any. And then after that, well, my goal is generally what I try to do is work 3 to 4 events and then run 3 to 4 events a year. That's kind of the general goal for me. So.
And Tanner, you have 4 kids, so are you going to get them to run it with you someday in the future?
You know, here's my philosophy on my kids. If they want to run, I don't want to force them into anything. And I'm sure that just by virtue of myself and my wife being Ragnarians and runners and kind of loving endurance, I'm sure that they will come around to it. They don't get it today, but what they do love is coming out to the events and actually working the events. So my oldest is old enough now that she'll probably come out and sit in the vehicle with me as I'm, helping our race director put on the event, and they love that kind of stuff. So they will, I'm sure we will be running. I'm sure there is a Bell Ragnar team in our future. My wife will probably make them. So
4 kids, you and your wife, that sounds like a van.
yeah, exactly. We got a whole van, right? Yeah.
Right. You got half the team ready to go right there when you get there. Okay. So we talk about health. We talk about energy. We talk about happiness here. And clearly running, I'm a huge believer in just the endorphins that come from running, for the happiness and the health benefits that come from running and all of that. Yet some of our people are also business people that are just listening because they need a little bit more of that in their life. You've built a very successful business. Give me one tip everybody can take away from your experience building Ragnar that they could take to build their business. What's something that you have done that would be duplicatable?
I think the pandemic. So my original experience of being that early startup entrepreneur and kind of putting myself second, putting the business first, and kind of letting things go was a really bad sort of mental health and physical decision. And I realized through that, and then also through the pandemic, that keeping up with those regimens, keeping up with the physical is as important for me in running a business. That physical is as important as the mental or the execution side of it. And so making sure that I am regular, even if it's just in the pandemic, taking walks, right? And just getting outside, but more so getting the gym, getting my runs in. If there's one way to kind of connect those two worlds, that's for me the best way to do it is being consistent with my athletic goals and endeavors makes me a better person, better father, and a better businessman. So
I don't think that could be better said. And I think that's undervalued in our world as business people, isn't it? So
yeah.
It's great to hear you say that and share your thoughts on that. And I think I'd love to ask just one more question, and that is, Ragnar is wonderful. It's an incredible program just the way it is. And I'm curious if there's anything about it that you're wanting to change or improve in the future. Because you're not quitting anytime soon, right? You're going to be around for a bit.
Yep, I'm going to be around for a bit.
Okay, good.
What are the things that we want to change? That's a good question. I think for us, I think we're looking at new and exciting opportunities for our participants, right? We've been doing road relays for 15 odd years. We've been doing trail relays for 8 years. And we've been cooking up some new concepts and some new ideas. And what we've realized is that the Ragnarians love a unique challenge and a unique offering. So while these running relays are always going to be our core, we've got some exciting stuff cooking that we hope to launch in the next year or two at the most. So I think that's the big thing that we're working on, is bringing some new concepts to the Ragnar world of people that have already run, and then also for people that haven't participated. So I would say be on a watch for that as we start to roll some new things out.
Be on watch. We're not going to be on watch, Tanner. You're going to come join us on the 15-point plan to announce some of these things,
I like
right?
it. I like it. Let's do it.
All right. We'll get that on the schedule as soon as you start getting closer to whatever those things are. So the audience is listening. And of course, they always know they can reach out to Jillene and I. And of course, Ragnar, pretty obvious. I'd probably just type Ragnar. Now, I believe it's ragnarrace.com. Is that correct?
It's runragnar.com.
Run Ragnar. I knew it was right.
Still
so it's
trying to get Ragnar.
Run Ragnar. Well, yeah, that one's taken, right? Runragnar.com. They can learn more about the races. They can follow along. They can participate. They can read up on it. They could register and join.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a place for all the info.
All right. So, folks, what we want you to do is we want you to stay healthy, right? We want you to be happy. We want you to have more energy. And if you can accomplish an event like this, you can be sure it's one of those things you'll always be able to draw on. You'll always be able to look back at. You'll always be able to reach into that bag and say, I've done this. Heck, you'll have the bling on the wall that you can keep up there, like Tanner was saying, and you can look at it again and again. I'm looking to add a Ragnar medal to my bling that I have on my wall. I don't have one yet. Can't wait to get mine. Jillene has said it to me many times, and I think, Tanner, you've made it pretty clear. Folks, find a team of people you don't mind smelling for 24 hours, because that's what it's going to be like when you're trapped in a van together. Tanner, we appreciate you joining us here. And if you're in the audience, we hope you'll share this opportunity with other people about an event like this. We're going to bring you other events that are happening out there. Jillene and I are just getting involved in this one. We're going to share with you our journey to Ragnar and then with our team from Ragnar. So follow along on the 15-point plan. Join us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/win-make-give, where we get to talk about the race and keep you guys informed what's going on. Tanner, on behalf of our audience, on behalf of Jillene, on behalf of Ben, our founder, we want to thank you for taking the time and joining us today. And folks, we hope this episode has helped raise your energy level.